Hello. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Apologies for the slightly late start, but I'd love to welcome you all to the Minor Gap Conference 2019. So my name is Harris Qureshi. I am the conference lead for this year. I'll just do a very quick introduction to the conference and society, and then we'll move on to our sessions today. So I joined Minor Gap in 2014, which is when I came to university. September 2014, I came to Newcastle University to study undergraduate degree in computer science. My sort of background with mental health, I think, is quite typical of most young students. I was one of those, overachievers, highly expected to sort of go far and do very well. That pressure was a consistent aspect of my school career the entire time. I went through my GCSEs and my A-levels. I had decisions to do well. For a young adult, that's a lot of pressure. At the same time, when I was about 11 or 12, I developed OCD. So I was as part of CAMS, which is a child and adolescent mental health services, and I told them about these symptoms I was having. I used to obsessively clean myself, obsessively wash my hands. I'd stutter over the word B, I'd panic about certain things, I'd keep going back to my locker now and then, and they were like, you have OCD, you have obsessive compulsive disorder. And so they gave me a bunch of flyers. I used to go in for therapy sort of counselling sessions. At no point during this entire experience with CAMS, which lasted about 3 or 4 years, did anyone ever actually bother to mention the words mental health. I was diagnosed with a mental illness at the age of 11 or 12, and I didn't even know that's what I had. I knew I had OCD, but those 3 letters meant pretty much nothing to me. And so, for me, the lack of any kind of awareness of what I was going through and what it was a serious thing didn't do me any favours. And I think it's also a common experience. My family meant best. My family would support me and push me in the right direction, and try and get me away from these sort of negative urges. But I didn't know what I was going through, and very much my family didn't understand either, because it was explained to them even worse than explained to me. So for a well-meaning family trying to push me out of these negative kind of obsessions, it was very much kind of every time I do something like wash my hands obsessively, like, why are you doing that? Stop doing that. You know you're not meant to do it. You know you have OCD, therefore you should be able to stop simply by the nature of knowing. None of this was helpful, and it just perpetuated my panic attacks, the stress that I had. And then above all that, academic work, trying to make sure I kept sort of high achievement that I was that's happening now. That was imposing target. And about 13 years old, I reckon I developed depression. Not that anyone actually told me this, even though people noticed. I was becoming more withdrawn, I was becoming more exhausted, more fatigued. I'd get home after a school day and immediately collapse into bed, but then spend the entire night awake. I was being less open, less myself. My grades dropped massively. Despite all these kind of big red flags, no one ever bothered to have a discussion about depression towards me, and it got to the point where there were times that I actually considered ending my life, and that was how bad it got, and no one noticed. And all this roots down to a severe lack of mental health awareness. When I came to university in about 2015, I joined Mind the Gap because a lot of what I read about mental health on the internet, on social media, on Tumblr resonated with me, and so I wanted to know more about mental health. And very quickly, being part of this support network of other students who all had the exact same experience as me, for me, it was like, well, okay, I clearly have a mental illness, and I went to my GP and I went to student wellbeing and told them my symptoms, and they're like, yes, you have a mental illness. So in 2015, I was formally diagnosed with depression, probably about 6 years after actually going through it. And for me, that's kind of a testament to how terrible our awareness raising for mental health is. But being part of Mind the Gap for the last 4 or 5 years now has been kind of immensely wonderful. Being part of a community of students, being able to sort of discuss our kind of experiences has been essentially about Mind the Gap. I'm not by any means healthy at the moment. I'm still going through severe mental illness, but about the society, about the kind of community and support network it's provided, I would be considerably much worse where I am now. And I think that's just testament to kind of how much power being aware of kind of what you're going through can do. But that also is a problem. It shouldn't be down to students at a university to educate people on something as important and widespread as mental illness. I've talked about, social media and Tumblr being the reason why I knew I had depression. It shouldn't be down to things like Tumblr, it shouldn't be down to things like Facebook memes for me to learn about such an important aspect of my well-being, a part of my well-being which could have very easily killed me 5 years ago. It should be down to the education system, it should be part of the curriculum, it should be down to the government and, it should be down to the government to fund the NHS and fund training with teachers and training for parents and anyone who has someone else under their care to raise awareness. It shouldn't be down to student volunteers who are all studying full-time degrees and are all going through things themselves to educate the world about mental health. But that's just the nature of things, and that's where we are now. So like I said, I'm part of Mind the Gap for 5 years, and it's been a wonderful experience. I've seen the society, so Mind the Gap is actually 5 years, pretty much today. Our first conference was on the 3rd of May 2014, the only conference I haven't had the pleasure of going to, and here we are 5 years and 1 day afterwards, and so I've had the immense privilege of seeing Mind the Gap grow over those 4.5 years, and the wonderful things that it's done. We've held peer support for other students to give them the opportunity to open and express themselves. We've held multiple awareness raising campaigns, we've held discussions, we've done campaigns across campus. We managed to beat university when it tried to impose a policy that if you sat an exam, that meant that you were fit to sit it, and therefore couldn't then retrospectively apply for, it meant that if they had passed that policy, you couldn't then say, I was actually stressed and ill during it, and that impacts my work, which was a completely ableist, sanist, and ridiculous policy, and I'm proud to say that society played a big part in defeating that. And we're here today, like I said, 5 years after, still raising awareness about mental health, very important subject, and still campaigning to get it well known. So I'll talk a bit more later about what to expect today, but I'd like to welcome up Michael, who's the current president of Mind the Gap, to just talk about some of the things that we've achieved this year.
Hi. Following on from what Harris said, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you for coming to the Mind the Gap conference. My name is Michael Halliday, and I'm the current president of Mind the Gap. Now, Mind the Gap has grown from strength to strength over the years, and this is due to the kind of volunteers and also the committee, the hard work they've all put in. Because of this, we've been able to hold a whole host of kind of student-led services, including but not limited to things like peer discussion groups that Harris has mentioned, and also discussions related to topics around mental health. Now, at the centre of it all is this conference. Now, Harris and the team have worked very hard to create an itinerary of workshops and talks that I'm sure you'll find most informative and very educational. Now, if you have any questions, please feel free to talk to any of the committee or myself, as we're more than happy to answer any questions. But now I'm going to pass you over to Harris, who's going to explain how this thing is going to run. Thank you very much.
Before we welcome up our first speaker, just going through some quick housekeeping. I'm sure there's something health and safety I'm meant to be talking about now, but we're not expecting many fires, so if you see any, then the exits are the big green things you typically see in buildings with proper health and safety regulations, so just kind of make your way out there. Volunteers will kind of guide you if you're lost towards the exits, and I think the fire collection point is the car park next to the Herschel building, so any volunteers in blue should be able to direct you towards there. But like I say, not many fires are expected, so it should be cool. If you need any help, any signposting, if you're lost, speak to anyone wearing a Mind the Gap top with a fancy brain Metro logo, because Mind the Gap trains and brains, and it's clever. Just follow those guys and ask them for that. If you see anything which looks majorly like an emergency, then see anyone who's wearing a white top, and we'll be able to help you with that too. And the info point, so if you are struggling to find anybody to help, the info point is reception, so it's the main entrance you came through, and we've got someone manned there throughout the day, so if you are struggling to find anyone, just head towards the reception info point. This is the schedule of the day. There have been some slight changes. I believe a scribbled version is kind of on the other side of that door there, so if you look at that, and we'll also get the social media posts put out about the updated schedule as well, so if you go to our event, you'll see on there. But very shortly, I'm going to welcome Paul Britton onto the stage to talk a bit about mental health in regards to postgraduates. And then after that, in venue 4, I believe, which is the space over there, we hopefully should be having someone from St. John's Ambulance doing a workshop on mental first aid. After Paul's talk, we'll have on this stage here a panel led by students on the experience of mental health. So it's a good chance of people who sort of want to hear from the perspective of students what going to university is like, and you can ask questions to them too. Paul will be doing a follow-up workshop from his talk in the history room, which is the first floor upstairs, as is all the other session rooms. Jacqueline's workshop's being moved to the afternoon slot, so we'll post an update on social media there.
Steve, do a self-hard talk.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was doing. So Steve O'Driscoll is doing, so the self-harm talk that was scheduled for 3 p.m. is now in the Martin Luther King room at 11, and Francis Saint is doing a talk on peer support services if the NHS is catching on among universities in the KAD room. So hopefully that still makes sense. If you have any questions, like say, see a volunteer, and I'd like to welcome Paul up now to present his keynote speech. Thank you. I should probably also mention we will have lunch provided. That will be in venue 1, which is the area to my left there. And then after all the sessions have finished, if everyone can come back to venue for 4 p.m, we'll just have our closing talks and closing kind of ceremony for the conference. Thank you.
Right. Well, first of all, good morning everybody, and thank you for having me along. My name is Paul Britton, and I'm a project manager and research lead Postgraduate Research Student Wellbeing for All project. Do you want to step forward, guys? Hide behind there. So I'm here today with Giselle Sensoro and Yue Liang, who are both research assistants on the programme and will jointly deliver this presentation. So what we're going to talk to you about, obviously it's a mental health, really important issue, particularly within the student population, but specifically today what we're going to look at is intersectional issues between EDI, mental health and being a student with kind of specific focus on postgraduate research students. So in terms of the kind of general statistics, what we see at the moment is that 19% of 16 to 24-year-olds report a mental health condition at their higher education institute. Within those figures, students are 5 times more likely, 5 times more students disclose a mental health condition now than they did 10 years ago. Now, to give you some kind of figures around that, what we're looking at is 10 years ago, 5,000 students reported. Today, 15,000 students. That's quite a significant increase. We also see that 36% of international students report poor mental health, but only 23% actually know where to seek mental health support. And 79% of respondents in Student Mind survey say that specific mental health provision should be provided for students from LGBT backgrounds. And finally, here at Newcastle, what we found within the contested spaces of diversity research that was carried out is that there was one condition, which was psychological distress, which was common between all of our diverse networks, across our BAME networks and LGBT, part-time students, students with disabilities, etc., etc. What I'd say about this is the figures are stark, as we can probably see, but the population samples that we used as part of it were predominantly undergraduate. There were postgraduate students in there, small numbers of taught and very small numbers of postgraduate research students. So, which takes us into postgraduate research student mental health. This is a big issue at the moment, and as I say, I'll get to it in a bit more depth shortly, but just looking at the statistics, over the last 3 years, what we've seen is a 2.4% rise, up to 3.3% of postgraduate research students reporting a mental health condition to their university. Now, the 2.4% rise doesn't sound a lot, but actually it's still chronically underreported, because if you map that against the fact that the NHS suggests that 1 in 4 of us, and I've worked with consultant psychiatrists that suggest that actually it's probably closer to 1 in 2 of us will experience a mental health condition throughout our lives. It's chronically underreported within the PGR population. More evidence to support the underreporting of it is that research is being carried out, which shows us that postgraduate research students, 32% of postgraduate research students are at risk of developing a common psychiatric disorder, and they're 6 times more likely than the general population to contract something such as depression or anxiety. Now, those figures are again quite stark, but they still come from small samples. They might be postgraduate specific samples, but they're very small samples, which brings us up to last year, so 2018. If you've not seen it, VTAG produced a report in 2018 which highlighted a number of factors fully focused on postgraduate research students and mental health, and it highlighted a number of factors in relation to the factors that impact the mental health of our postgraduate research students. So what I'd say is this is a watershed moment, and again I'll talk about why shortly, but in terms of the factors that have come through, what we see is that postgraduate research students suffer chronically from isolation. I don't know how many postgraduate researchers I have in the room today, but what I'd say to you, I've been a postgraduate research student myself. You spend a lot of time, you pretty much live and breathe your research, whereas within an undergraduate population you might work with large cohorts being taught modules and classes throughout a lot of your time. As a postgraduate researcher, you spend a lot of time in labs or just working on a single piece of research, and often a lot of your fellow peers are working on different pieces of research that are very unique to them. So it can be quite a lonely experience and quite isolating. Postgraduate researchers don't associate themselves with the general student population. They almost many postgraduate researchers will say to you, they almost feel as though they sit between the divide between staff and students, and that a lot of the services that are available aren't perhaps nuanced enough for them, and almost they feel like they pick certain parts out of one thing for undergraduates and some things for staff, so they suggest that these things can be quite frustrating and it can start to affect their well-being. Imposter syndrome, this is massive. It's also it's it's within the undergraduate population as well, but within what you find is a lot of postgraduate researchers, they are at the top of their field as students, they're high achievers, they're offered scholarships, they head in as kind of put on pedestals, and when they get into a postgraduate research environment, what you realise is, actually, hold on, everybody else is exactly the same as me here. So it's almost like you're no longer a big fish in a small pond, you're a big fish along with hundreds, thousands of other big fish who are high academic achievers. You then start looking around and thinking, well, oh, hold on, that person's doing fantastic with their research, why are they there? And oh, they've just been published in, I don't know, let's throw the names out there, published in Nature, and oh, my professor's fantastic, he's got publications all over the place. And then the questions start to get asked, do I belong in this environment? Which again can kind of make people become a lot more insular, which again, it kind of just perpetuates that whole isolation. Postgraduate research is signified as part of the VTI report that financial worries were a big thing. Again, if any of you are postgraduate researchers, you know that the stipends what you would get as part of a postgraduate research degree are often not massive and quite difficult to manage and to live on. But a research degree is also an extremely tasking thing to take on, takes a lot of your time, and actually being able to do part-time work alongside a postgraduate research degree is quite difficult. We've got the perception that student services communications are aimed at undergraduates. A lot of postgraduates work more, they often pick up communications, and without reading them will automatically think, hold on, they're not aimed for me, the support that's in there is perhaps not available to me, it must be for undergrads, which is obviously not the case, but it's something that they've reported. Incidents of sexual harassment. VTI picked up reports that certain postgraduate researchers, females, accept a certain degree of sexual misconduct is acceptable because what they didn't want to do is wreck their chances of progressing their career, which is really not acceptable and shouldn't be happening in this day and age. Career next steps. I don't know if any of you know the statistics, but they're quite low. The number of people who go into a postgraduate research degree who actually tie down a full-time permanent contract within academia it's very low. A lot of postgraduate researchers have to chase doctoral scholarships. This can lead them to being moved all over the country. So there's always a worry about what is my next step as a postgraduate researcher. An expectation that high workload equals high achievement. Now, this is an interesting one because what happens is you move into a department, you sit within your institute, and what you see around you is academics and fellow students working lots and lots of hours daily. You're getting messages from central services that say to you, actually you shouldn't be working this many hours, it's really not good for your well-being. But when you look around, everybody else is under so much pressure that you almost think that that's more indicative to the culture and that that's what you should be working towards, as opposed to the messages that you're being told. Make sure that you take breaks, make sure that you look after yourself. All of this can affect all of these things can have a significant impact on mental health and well-being. And then the big one is supervisor relationships. Obviously, when you do undertake a postgraduate research degree, you have a supervision team, and the lead on that, your postgraduate supervisor, is the person, is almost kind of the person that you will go to throughout your 3-4 years or whatever it is that you're studying a postgraduate research over. If that relationship goes sour, it can have a significant impact on individuals' mental health and well-being. So again, that list's not exhaustive. What I would say to you is, when we look at the EDI factors, so when we look at the individuals from diverse groups, these things that we've already discussed can become significantly exacerbated. So we'll move over to that. Right, so what we see is within the international student community, along with all the other concerns that we've already just outlined, visa concerns, so they have all the visa requirements that they need to go through. Cultural integration, example, student comes over from Asia to study a postgraduate research degree, there's no family here. It's a very difficult process. Unlike an undergraduate where you might have a cohort of students that you're going through the process with, that you can make bonds with, if you're sat doing what I discussed in the previous slide of isolation and focused within your own research for long periods of time, it can almost feel kind of, it gets a lot more lonely because that's all you're focusing on. You're not doing that kind of social interaction as to what you probably would at undergraduate. We know that a lot of our international students are less likely to speak to GPs about mental health. Mental health is still highly stigmatized in some cultures. We also see that the isolation thing, I've just mentioned the isolation, but the isolation is made significantly worse through separation from families. And often due to visa requirements, etc., it's quite difficult to earn money, whereas it's difficult to get home to see families. Now, the VTI report showed us that postgraduate research students who are part-time, have disabilities, are parents or carers, they almost hit multiple risk factors in relation to their mental health. So, for example, work-life balance. So I was a part-time PhD student with 2 young children and a part-time lecturing role. It was I kind of don't want to kind of put anybody off doing a postgraduate research degree because they're fantastic things, but it was exceptionally difficult trying to balance my time between being a father, between being a husband, doing my research, making sure that I do my teaching responsibilities. It's not an easy thing to do. It almost leaves you very little time for you. Now, as part of your mental well-being, you should always be making time for you. But with when you haven't got any time, that becomes quite difficult. And obviously, it exacerbates a number of the factors that I've already discussed on the previous slide. Financial concerns. Prior to do my PhD, I almost accepted a self-funded PhD, and by the time I worked it out, I kind of was already getting stressed before I even worked it out, because I thought, well, I'm never going to be able to fund this, work full-time, and again, be a parent, be a father as well as being a husband, that kind of thing. So part-time students, we'll also see concerns over integration with the research community. As I just said to you, research communities are quite small. If you do a PGI degree and you end up within a research institute, you'll find that they aren't hundreds of people. It's often 20s and 30s that build these strong bonds. Now, if you're a part-time student and you're very rarely here on campus and will do a lot of working from home, again, that isolation is perpetuated because you don't feel as though you're properly integrated into the student population, which again can affect your well-being. It can lead to people hating their PhD, is some of the feedback that I get, particularly for part-timers, because of the lack of structure over time. And then maternity and paternity concerns. If you decide that you're going to go on maternity leave and you're halfway through your research, there's always that fear about, oh, well, where will the research be when I come back? Will I be able to take a break? Will I just be able to come back? How will this affect my funding? Which again leads to, this can impact mental well-being. What's the impact? So, well, the impact on mental health and well-being is massive. But what the impact is, kind of in a more pragmatic sense, is that students end up with reduced completion rates. We end up with increased interruption of studies, a need for mental health treatment. And sometimes that can be long-term mental health treatment for more what have essentially gone from being acute to kind of slightly more chronic conditions that may take some time to come down. So more research is needed, because what I'd say to you, this is one paper. All this came out of one paper, which you can see on our web pages for the project. But more research is going to be carried out. So this brings us to now, and it brings us to where we are. So the PGR Wellbeing for All project is one of 17 HEFGI, now Office for Students, Catalyst-funded projects, which is being carried out to look at postgraduate research student mental health and the support that we can provide our postgraduate researchers. It's a national project. As I say, there's 17 of us. It's a £1.5 million Catalyst fund. And the 17 institutions are all looking at different elements of postgraduate mental health and postgraduate research student mental health support. The project that we have here specifically is to look at students from diverse groups. So we're looking to not generalise, we're looking to get the views and opinions through running research interviews of students from diverse backgrounds, so members of our LGBT community, BAME students, students with disabilities, part-time parents, carers, all of those things. So what I would say to you is, if you are a postgraduate research student listening today, I would encourage you to get in touch with us and put yourself forward, because we want to hear your views, in obviously completely confidential interviews. So as part of this project, what we have is we've got 3 work streams. We've got research and evaluation, which UA will chat about shortly. We have program design and delivery, which is a range of initiatives, what we're trying to do to put in place to better support the mental well-being here at Newcastle University of our postgraduate research students. And then we have supervisor training. So we're looking at running, again we'll get into this a bit further down the line, but doing some research with supervisors about kind of how they perceive their role in mental health support, what how mental health support can we provide them while they're providing support for their kind of supervision students. Now, what I'd say to you as a findings of this, if anyone's thinking, oh, is this just going to be one of those projects that we don't know anything else about in the future, it's not. We are going to operationalise the findings from this project to better support the mental health and wellbeing of our postgraduate research students through feeding it into relevant strategy and policy here at the institution, but also through the OFS Catalyst project. There'll be a huge report which is published overall, which will feed into making national change within the higher education sector. So again, the more student voices what we can get, particularly for our PGR students, the more impact we can have as part of producing this report. Right, okay, I'm going to pass you over to Giselle now, because I'm sure you're all tired of hearing my voice. Giselle will walk you through our programme design and delivery.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, so good morning. Thank you for coming here on Saturday. It must be a challenge to get up in the morning. Anyone here PGR, Master, PhD? Okay, I figure out. You all look very young. Anyway, anyone who is planning to do their PhD or their Master? Even not in Newcastle. Okay, there are a few hands. So I hope that talk didn't made you like, okay, let's think about this decision in life. Well, first of all, PhD or being a master's student is fulfilling in itself because you're part of something bigger than yourself. It's just that there's pressure, yes, and even in undergrad, I think there's pressure. So it's just a different level. So we're here, and the university is here to support you. That's why we're presenting several programs. So just to give you quickly, who is this person in front of me? I'm a PhD politics student. I'm from the Philippines. And this is my first year, so you can imagine from a sunny place in Earth going to Newcastle, which is very cold. Coming before winter was really, really like wow, like such a shock when I got here. So I was like, my undergrad is psychology, and I did organizational studies, and now doing my PhD in politics. So, and it's a Brexit time, so you can imagine like all those things in my head. So I went to the well-being service, and I went to the HAS program in my school to check what are the things that can help me survive. That's actually my term. And yeah, I came across several well-being programs, and good thing there was this project on PGR well-being for all, which supports postgraduate students. So that helped a lot. So what I'm presenting is a program in design. So first we have the PGR community. So this is the events, and this is both online and offline services of the university. So there's online platform wherein people can log in and interact with each other. And then we also have events. So we already have our pizza and game night. We will have our art therapy, and then we also have like last weekend we went to time out together. So those random activities that we do together to just enjoy and get out of our office or out of our desk just to see other life outside the academe. So that's the PGR community initiative. The second one is we have mindfulness activities. Anyone who have been to any mindfulness activities? How was it? Did you like it? Yeah, for me it's a good thing. You get to relax. You get to like remove the clutter in your head, and yeah, essentially it's a good. If you go to the gym, then you also need to exercise your head. So that's a good exercise for your head. I highly recommend it, especially if it's your exam, because it's kind of like slows you down and relaxes you. The third initiative that we have are joint delivery PGR mental health awareness activities. So these are several events that we have on campus. In fact, we will have an LGBT and mental health event coming on May 13 at Barbara Strand. So if you're interested, that's May 13 at Barbara Strand on LGBT and mental health. Highly recommended if that is something that is your concern or you're interested in it. So we have several of those activities inside the campus. And then we also have the centralized student well-being workshops in the PGR workshop. So if you're a PGR, there's a portal wherein you can register the different workshops that you can attend. So there's stress and anxiety, there is handling complex lives. So very practical ways on how you can cope up as a PGR student. And then lastly, we have the PGR mentoring program. So these are catered for the several targeted groups that we have on campus. So international students, we also have BAME students, we also have LGBT parents, carers. So there's a portal wherein people can interact and also support each other. So there are mentors who are trained to provide support to these specific sectors. So that's it. So if you have questions, I hope you can join us in the workshop, and then we hope to hear from solutions from you as well. So I'll call now Yue to present the research. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Yue Liang and I'm from China. This is my final and last stage of my PhD. Now I'm going to move on to a bit boring part about the research itself. So for our PGR Wellbeing for All project, our participants are postgraduate research students from diverse backgrounds and groups, and they are LGBT students, and they are BAME, international home, part-time or career students. So far we already conducted around 2 focus groups and more than 10 one-to-one interviews with all our participants. We want to find out 3 things. First of all is what factors may affect students' mental health and well-being, and secondly is what kind of social support and services they would like to access, and last but not least, their relationship with their supervisor and how does it impact on their mental health and well-being. We're also interested in the supervisor side of view, so we will conducting 10 one-to-one interviews with our supervisors. We want to find out supervisors' opinions on how does mental health, how does supervision relationship can impact PGR students' mental health, and are they comfortable dealing with those kind of mental issues that PGR students might bring with them, and also the possibilities of doing some supervisor training workshops. Okay, for the supervisor training, we will be piloting an evidence-based supervisor mental health well-being training workshop by early September. So by that time, hopefully, we will get all our data down and we're already done the analysis part. So we want to raise supervisors' awareness on PGR students' mental health and well-being and how to tackle that issues more effectively.
Right, okay, so we're coming to the end, right? So for those of you who did say it when Giselle was asking if you're going to do a postgraduate research degree, I wasn't trying to scare the life out of you at the beginning of that talk. And I think what I'd point out is it's about us fleshing out the issues so that you understand that if you do undertake a postgraduate research degree, some of these things are normal. And to expect it's about how to prepare for it ahead of time. And what I'd say to you is across our research and training platforms, in each of the faculties and as a student wellbeing service, there's some details on the board at the moment, is we've got lots of different training programs in place. So we've got PGR resilience, we have time management sessions, which may seem slightly patronising, but trust me, they're extremely useful, particularly if you are planning on doing a postgraduate research degree. And it's the things like stress management and kind of knowing that to a certain degree, while undertaking a research degree, stress it's a normal thing, it's intrinsically difficult. But also hugely rewarding and fulfilling. So as part of this research and the wider research, the more that we can find out about kind of the issues that are impacting the mental well-being of our postgraduate research students, the more provision we can put in place to reduce that kind of load which is unnecessary and sits outside of the research process, or at least give you all the tools to kind of make sure that you can flourish in your research and flourish as individuals, as opposed to having to kind of deal with factors that kind of can be avoided to an extent. So what I'd say is, if any of you are planning on doing that, as I say, we have lots of kind of postgraduate research degree, we have lots of training available that will help you get through the process. I'm sure you will all flourish, but kind of just, yeah, be mindful when you move forward to look after yourselves and take care of your well-being, and ensure you engage with well-being services if required, which you can see on the board. So thank you very much today, and sorry if we delivered a little bit of figure with some feel, but please be positive about your postgraduate research futures if that's what you're planning on doing. So yeah, any questions? I think that's us done then. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.